Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and welcome to the program. We're waiting for my sister to join us. I wanted to get started because I want to share something with you that maybe you're not aware. Susan reports that that something's blocking her phone. I don't know. She said this happened a few weeks ago as well. I don't know. Well, we'll continue, and she should call just 412-200-5686. Just call the regular number. I'm not in a position to text her, actually, but okay. So, Susan, I hope you're listening. Just call the regular number, 412-200-5686. I saw this just as I came into the studio, and I finally found it on my, trusty device. And what it is an opinion piece written by a former Supreme Court justice, a Republican former Supreme Court justice, John Paul Stevens. And I have not had the opportunity to read it in toto, but I thought I'd share it with you, and we can read it together, if you don't mind. And I think Susan is being patched in, I hope. Okay, I'm just going to read this. This is John Paul Stevens, former Supreme Court Justice. Rarely in my lifetime have I seen the type of civic engagement school children and their supporters demonstrated in Washington and other major cities throughout the country this past Saturday. These demonstrations demand our respect. They reveal the broad public support for legislation to minimize the risk of mass killings of school children and others in our society. That support is a clear sign to lawmakers to enact legislation prohibiting civilian ownership of semi-automatic weapons, increasing the minimum age to buy a gun from 18 to 21 years, and establishing more comprehensive background checks on all purchasers of firearms. But the demonstrator, here's where it is, but the demonstrators should seek more effective and more lasting reform. They should demand a repeal of the Second Amendment. Again, this is a former U.S. Supreme Court Republican justice saying they should demand a repeal of the Second Amendment. He goes on, concern that a national standing army might pose a threat to the security of the separate states led to the adoption of that amendment, which provides that, quote, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, end quote. Today, that concern is a relic of the 18th century. For over 200 years, after the adoption of the Second Amendment, it was uniformly understood as not placing any limit on either federal or state authority to enact gun control legislation. For over 200 years, he said. In 1939, the Supreme Court unanimously held that Congress could prohibit the possession of a sawed-off shotgun because that weapon had no reasonable relation to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia. During the years when Warren Burger was our Chief Justice from 1969 to 1986, no judge, federal or state, as far as I am aware, expressed any doubt as to the limited coverage of the Second Amendment. when organizations like the National Rifle Association disagreed with that position and began their campaign claiming that federal regulation of firearms curtailed Second Amendment rights, Chief Justice Burger, again, a Republican, I add, publicly characterized the NRA as perpetrating, quote, one of the greatest pieces of fraud. I repeat the word fraud on the American public by special interest groups that I have ever seen in my lifetime. End quote from former Chief Justice Burger. In 2008, the Supreme Court overturned Chief Justice Burger's, this is 2008, so it's just, 10 years ago. This is some history, guys, we need to know. In 2008, the Supreme Court overturned Chief Justice Burger's and others' long-settled understanding of the Second Amendment's limited reach by ruling in District of Columbia versus Heller that there was an individual right to bear arms. I was among the 4 dissenters. So that was a 5-4 ruling. And that was just 10 years ago. That decision, which I remain convinced was wrong and certainly was debatable, has provided the NRA with a propaganda weapon of immense power. Overturning that decision via a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment would be simple and would do more to weaken the NRA's ability to stymie legislative debate and block constructive gun control legislation than any other available option. That simple but dramatic action would move Saturday's marchers closer to the objective than any other possible reform. It would eliminate the only legal rule that protects sellers of firearms in the United States, unlike every other market in the world. It would make our school children safer than they have been since 2008 and honor the memories of the many, indeed far too many, victims of recent gun violence. That, ladies and gentlemen, from John Paul Stevens, former Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, giving us some history and some education. And what he's saying is the way to proceed is to overturn that decision, District of Columbia v. Heller. Now, of course, the problem... Susan, are you there? Okay. Suze, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Sorry.
Yeah, I am.
Sorry about all that. I spent the time when you weren't there reading an op-ed for the New York Times written by former Justice John Paul Stevens. And it's a mind blower because he comes flat out and says that these kids and their marches on Saturday were amazing, deserve respect and attention. And he says the only thing he would suggest is they need to set their sights higher and they need to demand the repeal of the Second Amendment, a relic of the 18th century, he says. And then he goes on to talk about the history of how the courts viewed that Second Amendment all the way up to 1986. No, 2008. 1986, they were pushing back. The Burger Court telling the NRA that they were trying to perpetrate a fraud regarding their view of the Second Amendment. And he says it wasn't until just 10 years ago, 2008, in a case, District of Columbia v. Heller, that a 5-4 court, and he was a dissenter, 5-4 court said that the Second Amendment gave individuals the right to bear any arms they wanted to. So he says it's that decision that has provided the NRA with all the muscle they have needed, and it's that decision that must be overturned. And I was saying, that's wonderful that he's come out and said that, but how do you overturn a case like that when you look at the current court and the possibility that Donald Trump will have an opportunity to put another justice on it, who will probably look around for a justice who's 6 years old? So
you don't, but I do think that what he's doing is saying there is a moment, and if you can take this moment and really get the cultural norm to begin to change so that it starts to push back, that's how it happens. That's how, and I'm telling you, 50 years ago, you wouldn't have told me that it would, if you smoked a cigarette in front of somebody, they'd sneer at you and walk away.
So things are doable. And
things are doable, and that's how they're doable.
And what the kids are saying is that we have got to rouse ourselves from the paralyzed, defeatist torpor that we have been in because of the seeming incredible power of the NRA and its hold on the cowards that call themselves legislators and Congress people.
Every time I watch those kids, they replay this stuff. I'm sitting there. Every single time I'm sitting there with tears rolling down my face.
Right.
And I'm more than a little worried for Emma Gonzalez. I hope she stays safe because she is somebody that's going to get old enough to really be somebody.
She is somebody already. She is amazing.
She is somebody, but I want her to get old enough to be able to be somebody.
Like the President of the United States.
Yeah, like the President of the United States.
Yeah,
composure, and that little 11-year-old girl.
Oh, no, it was mind-blowing. And as I said yesterday, the eloquence of the silence that Gonzalez had the courage to stand there and just put out there onto Pennsylvania Avenue. To me, it was surpassed in eloquence for a Washington march only by Dr. King. That's the only thing I can think of that was better or as incredible. Just amazing.
Yeah.
So I agree, though. There's enough nutcases.
I thought, yeah. Well, go ahead, sir.
Well, when you see the Republicans and the right-wingers going after these kids, my God. And they're going after them with lies. And, I mean, can you imagine? These are children who have, in the very recent past, suffered a trauma that, God forbid, any of us should ever experience ourselves, and watch 17 of their classmates slaughtered, and they have had the resolve to do what they have done, and these adults that are gunning for them. Unbelievable.
Well, therein is my fear. I mean, among them reside more than a few nuts. And I will say the other thing that has had me sort of emotional about the whole thing is that of all the reactions to trauma that one can have, the one that these children put together for themselves and executed en masse is one of the healthiest reactions to to a trauma that I've ever seen in my life, and done so exquisitely that I'm just so impressed by them.
I know.
I really, because of all the reactions, to choose this one and to execute it so incredibly is also the healthiest and best thing they could have done for themselves in the act of healing that they're going to have to go through for the rest of their lives.
They're amazing. They're children, and they're amazing. Amazing. They're showing us. They're teaching us. All these old 60s and early 70s songs are coming back, Bob Dylan, the times they are a-changing, get out of the way if you can't lend a hand. And, it's time for us so-called grown-ups to stand down. Let these kids have it. Do it. It's just been so amazing to see them. I'm blown away by them, too.
And I have to, and it puts me in mind of the reactions of some of the high schools, and when students were walking out, and they are going to plan to do it again in another few weeks, I believe. But some schools, just let the kids do what they want, and the kids suffer the consequences, such as they may be, as written in the policy handbook. Some decide it's a good way to use it educationally, and they let it happen, but they still make a show of saying, you're not allowed to go. I mean, if they don't, it's not a protest. The ones that really get me are the ones that decide that the school is going to take over and manage the protest for the children.
I know, so disgusting. So disgusting.
And of all the uneducational, every helicoptery parent kind of thing to do as a school, and it happened in more than one place, and they did it with such pats on their back. I wanted to go up and punch them in the nose.
I know. They don't get it. And these are the people who are supposed to know how to educate our children, and they don't trust them. They don't see that this was a moment for the children to have power. Let them. It's their time. It's unbelievable. No, I so hear you. But wow, these kids.
It's a way. If there's a way for us to fuck things up as the older generation, keep doing it. I mean, just keep doing it.
Really?
It's just awful. Anyway, I have great hope for our future, and say, because another side effect of what they've done, aside from galvanize a movement, is to actually give a bunch of us hope again. That good news. We're all going to die, and they get to take over. It's about the best news I've heard.
Really, I know.
Yeah, I hope it happens in time before we ruin the world. I hope quick. I have grandchildren coming up. Grow up, kids. Take over. Hurry up. We'll try and get out of the way.
Hey, speaking of grandchildren, do you know I got a butt call yesterday? From your grandchild.
Yeah.
From his father, but when the father realized it was what he'd done, he tried to drop the call, and your grandson said, "No, I want to talk to her." Yay.
So did you talk? Did you get to talk to my grandson?
Yeah, I did. He was eating his dinner. The only 4-year-old I know whose favorite food is salmon. Oh, God. Yeah. And
all right. Well, yes, he's very cute, and a conversation. He's still at the point where unlike his father, when I used to put him on the phone with our mother, would go, hi, bye.
Right.
And then
his father could not carry on a conversation on the phone. It was like horrible. was talking yesterday about the term dead air. It was dead air. So lots of things to talk about, Suze. Did you watch Stormy Daniels?
Oh, how could I not? But here's the thing. If you're sitting in California, which I am for one more day,
Yeah.
you know that it's been on everywhere else, and I was, you know, and I'm sitting here having to wait. So out of desperation, I turned over to MSNBC because I knew they'd be immediately dissecting it, and it would be 2 hours before I'd get to see it, which is, of course, what happened. But then we watched it. You know what I think? Thank you, Stormy Daniels. I really like you, Stormy Daniels. I think you're really, all judgment aside, I wouldn't pick your perfectly legal way of making a living, but you are a courageous, smart
right.
woman, and
yeah.
I particularly like your lawyer. Whoa. Whoa.
Yike. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, man.
Man, I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that.
Well, not only that, I'd be on the other side of that. Now, that's the first person I've seen since my husband died that I thought, gee, if he actually came up and said, do you want to have dinner? I'd go, yeah, can we talk?
You got the hots for him.
He's brilliant. He's so full of himself. He talks sure, but he's good at it.
Yeah, he's
really. I was watching him discuss his horror at the legal team that Trump has.
I know.
He said, I'm just a guy from the Midwest, I'm thinking, which immediately put me in line of Norm, of our father, which is how he would start any negotiation, which would be by diminishing him and, just saying, I'm just,
I was just born in a log cabin in the mid. I'm just a country lawyer.
I certainly can't equate myself with the likes of the major law firms on the East Coast or the West Coast. This is how he starts his interview, And then he said, but he said, every single trap I've set for them, they just walk right into it gleefully. And I'm beginning to feel guilty, he said.
I'm playing them this way and that. No, and you know what? No attorney. He can't get an attorney, the president.
Well, no, because they've made they've already cooked their own geese. As of yesterday, they did something that even if they try and settle everything now, they can't, because by in some way insinuating that she's not telling the truth, which up to now they had assiduously not done. They established another cause for action, and they immediately, have got them on First Amendment and defamation and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Even if they pay the old one to go away.
Yeah, this
the new one doesn't.
Yeah, exactly right.
And and the other thing that they did is that they demanded a removal to federal court. And the second that they do that, they open up themselves to automatically being able to depose Trump, and automatically. So they've opened the doors to everything that was previously closed. These were and this was his team. So, this guy last night is just sitting back and going, they're just cooked. They're just cooked, and we're doing this because this is, the American people have a right to know who the President of the United States is.
Well, the Wall Street Journal in that regard was wringing its hands in its lead editorial today. And this is actually a line from a Wall Street Journal editorial. It cracked me up. Our guess, said the Wall Street Journal editorial board, our guess is that at the margin, this, namely Stormy Daniels' thing, this contributes to a growing public belief that Mr. Trump's personal flaws are undermining his chances for a successful presidency.
You think? His personal flaws, like the one where he's Donald Trump.
Jeez. And they go on to bemoan that he can't retain the best legal counsel because the best legal counsel wouldn't take him for a client. You can't take a loose cannon idiot like that for a client. You've built up a...
When was the last time that you heard... When was the last time you heard any top-notch law firm said, "Oh, we couldn't possibly, we're too busy"?
Yeah,
I mean, that's what you say to a late dinner. That's what you say to a late dinner invitation. That is not what you say
to the president
of the United States when he comes calling.
I know. Jeez.
And that's literally what they've been saying. Oops, we're busy.
Oh,
Never
I'm
mind
sorry.
That we have,
yeah.
5,000 lawyers worldwide. We're just a little tied up right now.
Very flattered you would think of us, but no, I'm so sorry. Have a prior commitment. Oh, dear
Well,
God.
and even Trump. The funniest thing is when he hires those people that look like they're hoarders from Fox News.
Oh, what about the husband and wife, the guy who looked like even
the husband and wife
even Tony Soprano wouldn't hire that guy. I mean, did you? So Trump loved him because he saw him on Fox News. And because this guy peddles conspiracy theories about the FBI is out to get Donald Trump. So Trump loved him. Let's get this guy, DeGeneva. And so DeGeneva and his wife come to the White House after the president has said he's going to be his new lawyer. And that's what resulted in his old lawyer quitting in disgust. I'm out of here. And DeGeneva and his wife come, and by the time they leave, he's gone. And the reason is, my understanding is, not that there was some little conflict, it's that Trump, when he sat across from these guys in real life, not television, there was no chemistry, he said. He wasn't like the guy on TV. Isn't that just sort of...
They look like two homeless people, and even excuse me, homeless people. That was rude. Even he thought they looked disheveled.
Yeah, he just didn't imagine you're going to meet the president, and right, they look like homeless people. Oh dear. So, Susan, I have a question. This thing comes from Roger. He says, yesterday I sent you an email about the Electoral College because our Senator Bob Casey told him that it's part of the Constitution and that it cannot be changed, which, of course, is absurd because the Constitution, of course, has been changed many times. They're called amendments. Right. So the question, Roger says, the question I asked yesterday that you didn't get to, maybe more in Susan's department as a lawyer, since we can all agree that Congress isn't going to do anything. Could a lawsuit, he says, with a less conservative Supreme Court end the Electoral College? It's pretty obvious.
No, the only way, no.
No. You gotta...
The only way...
It's an amendment to the Constitution. It's the only way to get rid of it.
There's only one way to do that, and that is with an amendment, which requires, 2/3 of the states.
2/3 of the states and passing the... I mean, it is such an onerous process, which is why...
It's got to get past both houses of Congress
by substantial margins.
It has to be...
Passed by 2/3 of the state legislatures.
I think that's true.
3/4 or 2/3 or something. You can look it up.
It's alert. Making up stat, right?
But it has to be a constitutional.
So it's very hard.
Right.
And the last time we tried was the ERA, and we couldn't get enough states to. We got by both houses, but enough states didn't want women to have equal rights that it didn't happen.
Right, there was something about bathrooms. I believe bathrooms always seem to get people freaked.
It was the first time bathrooms were used.
Yeah,
that was the first time.
That's what killed the Equal Rights Amendment.
No longer,
that somehow men would be able to come into a woman's bathroom.
Instead of the way it was eventually interpreted in the courts, because in fact this exact issue was made to the courts. And all it meant is that women finally got more stools than men because we can only go one at a time.
Yeah, Anyway.
That's how it happened. That equal rights meant that we got more bathroom space, which I think is, appropriate. Anyway.
There still isn't enough for women. There's still lines outside women's facilities and not men's. Anyway, so John Paul Stevens saying you get rid of the Second Amendment by passing another amendment. If you want to get rid of the Electoral College, you have to do that by amendment as well. But as we're saying, it's an expensive process, and I bet you these issues would pull well together, and it's not a bad idea to try and get them done together. And I think he's right. Or start out the process. Start it out. It's going to take a long, long time.
Start it out. I mean, I have been saying this now for a while on the show and in other forums in which I appear, and I have to say that, when people say they want our guns, I used to say, oh, no, you have a perfect right to have your guns. And now I'm saying, you're damn right, you abused it, just like anybody else. When you abuse the right to have it, you lose it, and a lot of little innocent people have to lose it too, because you can't behave, you misbehave, that's it, you're damn right, I want all the guns. Let's be honest about what we want. Let's not pussyfoot about it. Let's start with what we actually want. My guess is we'll have to compromise a lot to get anything, but if we start at the end, what's the point?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't want
out of circulation.
I don't want all the guns. What about hunters?
Oh, no, the hunters can have the rights to their guns. I'm not saying that.
Well, you said I want all the guns.
I've told you before, I think it makes absolute sense to have a central armory, and you check your gun in and out when you want to hunt.
Okay. So
you might have a law that says, you're allowed one hunting rifle and one handgun in a household. That's it. Anything else if you own it, it's fine. Has to be locked up in a central armory. I do not want all these guns out there, and if that leaves only the guns with the criminals, then the police will know what to do and who's got them. Right now, the police can't do their job because they don't know who they are and who's got them, or who doesn't have them more accurately.
So, Susan, at the march here in Pittsburgh on Saturday and at another event in Greensburg, PA, which is right near here, guys showed up carrying AK-47s.
Of course they did.
Can you imagine how vile do you have to be to bring the very weapon that killed all those kids that resulted in the march in the first place, and you bring one to a peaceably assembled group of people, mostly young?
That's what I'm talking about. They don't need those guns for protection. Those guns were only there to bully and to threaten.
Right.
And if that's their constitutional right, I say that's an abuse of their constitutional right and an infringement on ours to gather peacefully.
Well, it's also what about?
Don't know that they've gone too far. They've gone too far, and each of these rights comes with a line that says you've gone too far, including the goddamn Second Amendment. They've gone too far.
Exactly.
Reset time.
Okay, Roger also has a quote for us from Thomas Jefferson, and this is it. I am not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions changed, with the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also to keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him when a boy, as civilized society to remain ever under the regimen of their barbarous ancestors. And in this case, our founding fathers are our barbarous ancestors. Not that they were barbarous, but that they couldn't imagine the tools that we would have, that they seemingly would
Well,
protect.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you because now we're going to link you back to the Heller case.
Okay.
And I'll remind you that before 2008, no one thought that's what the Second Amendment
That's
said.
right. That's right.
So this is not them forcing us into a lad's coat. This is adult, modern-day people advancing a political cause at the behest of corporate entities.
And it's a politicized Supreme Court.
And it's a politicized Supreme Court. And may I just say that the fact that Remington has filed for bankruptcy because no one buys guns when a Republican is in office is a terrible thing to say to him. I mean, presents one with a terrible moral dilemma.
It is true. So Remington has declared bankruptcy, the gun manufacturer, because since Trump was elected, their gun sales have plummeted by 40%. Because every time you elect, the NRA and gun manufacturers require a Democrat in the White House for business to be good.
Only thing,
and the minute a Republican gets in, their sales drop because they can't scare the gullible masses that listen to their BS, that somehow the Democratic president is going to take their guns away. So go grab as many as you can while you can. It's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Aaron takes us.
It is amazing. I mean, isn't it amusing that the only thing that could really scare the bejesus out of a white macho guy with a gun is a little snowflakey Democrat?
I know. Who, by the way, is not going to take your guns away?
Right. Who's never even suggested they would?
Right.
It's
beyond
just
belief.
Somebody else whispering in your ear, "That's your enemy. That's your enemy," and you go, "Oh, point me at the enemy."
Unbelievable. Okay, Aaron points us in a different direction. He says, hi, last week on a few different occasions, you made some comments about ordering everything online versus shopping in a store and how you thought it was a downside to technology. Well, because it's putting out of business all these... Anyway, over the weekend I was thinking, back in the day, like the 30s, 40s, 50s, everything was delivered. Your milk, your groceries, your packages from shopping in the store. The doctor came to your house. A lot of things were similar to what we have today. It seems like it went away toward the...
You're right, the Sears catalog. The Sears catalog was the internet.
Right.
And you could get everything from toenail clippers to a build-it-yourself house.
But that's because our population was much more rural and small town, and those rural areas and small towns did not have department stores or business districts, and I think, but it's a great point. That's true. Also, it seems like back then everything was on account. People weren't walking around with piles of cash on them. They just paid at the end of the month. Maybe I'm wrong. Just seeing some interesting parallels maybe to back then and now online. Well, I think, I don't know.
Everything being on account wasn't that. I mean,
That's
there were
not
frequent
really right.
instances of that. No, but I will tell you a story. A member of the extended family, 50 years ago, parents divorced and mother left with, I think, about 8 kids. And there was this little teeny, one of those wonderful little markets that still exist every once in a while. That's a teeny little building with a whole grocery store crammed into it and a good butcher counter to boot. I mean, so there's such a place as a place called Ladue Market. It's been there literally since 18-something or other. And this woman, for months at a time would have no money, but everything was on account at Ladue Market. And there were places like that just took out, that's small town America when they took care of each other.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I do remember Dad telling me once, if you want something and you don't have money with you, just tell them who you are, and they'll charge it to me. So I tried that once, and they just looked at me like, who cares?
He said that? Why would he have said that to you?
I don't know, but it didn't work.
God. You were the spendthrift dog. Why would he say that to you? Jesus.
I don't know. It didn't work. Why are you getting your undies in a bundle?
I don't know.
All that happened is I got humiliated.
So,
they say.
Here's something I came upon. Just want to wing it by you because it just blew my mind. Apparently, in the Massachusetts State House, what's the capital of Massachusetts? Do we know?
Wait a minute.
Oh, you're looking it up on Google.
I'm not looking it up. I'm not cheating. Isn't that ridiculous? I'm not even cheating. I could. Good idea. If I play on my iPad, I get lost in thought.
Is it Boston? It is Boston?
I was going to say...
Well, I just thought it was some funny little, it is... Carlo's coming up with Boston here. I didn't realize it was Boston. I thought, Boston was what you'd say, but that'd be wrong. I'm not good at
Chicago isn't the capital.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm not good at state capitals. But we think it is Boston. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So anyway, at the state capitol there, and the House, the legislature's House, there are a few entrances to the floor of the House, and they are named. And one of the entrances is called the General Hooker entrance. And there's a sign to that effect that this is the General... See, you're like, my head never even went there. Well, listen to this.
Well, that's sort of like the bulk hookers, the organic hookers are the next door.
What? The organic...
Okay, never mind.
Okay. So, one of the women in the State House, State Representative Michelle Dubois, says that she went on Twitter and said, #MeToo. It's not all about rape and harassment, but also women's dignity. And she said that female staffers avoid walking in the hooker entrance. And I gotta say, that is the stupidest, idiotic thing I've ever heard. First of all, it's named...
Yeah, that's a grow-up. It's named after someone. His name
It's
is
named
Hooker,
after a Civil War General Joseph Hooker. I mean, so that's his name, okay? Hooker. It doesn't mean if you walk in that entrance, you're a prostitute. Duh. I mean, what? I am so... See, a woman like this... makes it so easy.
The whole movement.
It makes it it just unbelievable. That I read that and I wanted to scream, and I was hoping that she was laughed out of the chamber and that found herself unelected at the next opportunity. What?
Well,
why can't? Why?
Although there are names that should. That before you name something, you should just look at it and make sure that it's going to.
Well, but so what if you're a great person is named Hooker? You can he can never be honored.
No, and I mean, even though this is the internet, I have an instance like this. There was a Catholic girls' school above up the hill from where our house was, and it was this sort of beautiful old French chateau castle-like thing, gorgeous grounds, and you would drive in through these gates through a winding tree-lined lane, which they named after one of their head masters. But he had a name that shouldn't be on anybody's driveway leading up to a Catholic girls' school.
And what was the name, Susan?
Well, I'll just spell it for you.
Ah.
Kuntz.
Cunts. Well, maybe it was pronounced Kuntz.
I was walking with my husband one day. They had just renamed it. We saw the sign. The two of it almost killed us. We were laughing so hard we had to look for a bathroom. The whole thing was terrible. It didn't last. It didn't last long, I must say. Apparently, other people had the same reaction.
Aw, jeez.
Yeah, it's too bad. Pure minds have never even thought of that. But everybody else did.
Well, stop and think of like Dick's Sporting Goods, okay? So what if Dick's sponsored the entrance to, like at Lambeau Field where the Packers play, there's, this entrance at. What if Dick's did? So Dick's entrance?
Yeah, only drunk assholes got to go in that one.
But I mean, like, what?
That's funny. You could be both a dick and an asshole. Isn't that? Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
Amy says, just a thought. Maybe the women who use the hooker entrance have to deal with comments from some of the men there. I doubt it. I mean, stop and think. You're a state legislator. I think you got some. There's serious things to attend to.
Hello?
Yeah? Susan? Hello? Well, odd. We've lost her. So, I don't know. It's the last thing you would. And I just want to say this. And I'd actually wanted Susan's reaction, but yesterday I had to run to the grocery store, and I was. I'm sorry. I'm getting too much input here, and I'm not thinking. Okay, had to run to the grocery store, and I was walking down an aisle with my cart, and a gentleman was coming toward me, and as we passed, we sort of, nodded at each other. He smiled. We're friendly in these parts. And he said, "You're looking great today," he said, as if he knew me. And I thought, do I know him? And I don't know. And I just said, thanks. And kept going, as did he. And then he said, while he'd gone, but obvious to me, he said, "You're a fine-looking woman." Now, I thought that both of those things are absolutely politically incorrect now, right? You're looking great today, and you're a fine-looking woman. This is from a man I don't know, just passing in the grocery store. I not only, and so this is maybe generational, I don't know. I not only did not take offense. It made my day for a minute or two. It felt wonderful to have somebody say that. Women of a certain age don't get told that very often. And I could tell he wasn't coming on to me. He was simply expressing his opinion that he found me attractive. I don't know, women of my generation, that is not an awful thing done in the way he...
No, wait a minute.
Susan.
I missed that because I was unceremoniously knocked off. So who said that to you?
I was in the grocery store. I was pushing my cart man of a certain age was coming the other way. And as we passed, we nodded at each other. He smiled. I smiled at him. And he said, "You're looking great today," or something like that. And I looked at him and said, "Well, thank you." And we kept going. And as I continued, I heard him say, "You are one fine-looking woman." And he kept going, and I kept going. And I am saying, what I was saying, Susan, is I don't know if this is generational. That not only didn't offend me, I loved it.
It made your day.
Yes. I felt so, you know how women, as we get older, are devalued. We're not looked at. We're not noted. And
you're invisible.
Right. And he noticed me and complimented me and told me that he thought I was a fine-looking woman, and I loved it. Now, a young...
there's absolute... Can I just say something?
Yeah.
That's because there was nothing creepy about it. It was... you felt... No, you didn't feel sexualized. You just felt appreciated. There's nothing wrong with it, and I wish I could teach people how to have the proper tone, but the day that you're wrong for saying something nice to somebody else is a day that should never, ever come.
Okay, well, I want to say I think the day is here, because I think not many... What he did was now unallowed. That's what I think. And I think a younger woman would have been pissed, would have felt violated, triggered, all that kind of shit.
Remember the story that your about to have another birthday older brother tells about a young law student coming up and hugging him and saying, "I just love you, Professor Miller," and he says, "You wouldn't do that if I were 20 years younger."
That's true.
And perhaps precisely because you and I are women of a certain age, it allows somebody to say that without being a sexual creep, just being nice about it. And it is nice. There's nothing wrong with delivering a compliment. And I'm guilty of it, too. If I see someone, with particularly gorgeous hair, like going down an escalator, I'll say, "Oh, my God,
I love your hair." Yeah.
I just love your hair.
Yeah, but I read something the other day. Susan, I read something the other day where a woman was saying, just in case nobody understands it, what a woman's wearing, how she looks, is never a topic of you should never comment on it. It is not. And I'm thinking, well, it's like the fascist thought police. Everything gets taken too far.
Right. I mean, no, I don't want you to walk up to me and say, "You look too thin, eat something," which, by the way, happens all the time. If you're thin, people think they have as much right to tell you to eat as if they find you way too much and they look at you and they think you're eating too much.
Right.
Right. So just in case you think there's any place that anybody thinks that you're the right way, that's what you don't comment on. What someone eats, how they eat, just like you were saying, how much they weigh, how much they don't weigh. But if someone walks up to me and said, "Damn, those pants look good on you. I wish I could wear something like that," I'm just going to say thank you.
Yeah, exactly right.
What?
We have a caller
who's
hanging there.
Folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Jesus Christ. Okay, is our caller still there, or did they give up? Hello, caller.
I didn't give up.
All right.
Give up. I never give up.
You got stay in power,
No,
mister. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Is that a compliment? Anyway, you more or less answered my question as I was on hold, because I was going to ask, would you have went up to a strange man and said, "Hey, you look really nice today." If the opposite is okay, then him complimenting you is okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I have done that.
Yeah.
I have done that. Particularly if someone's wearing a really good hat at a really good angle. absolutely, when I walk back, I'll go, great hat. You know, I mean, what's wrong with noticing?
The way I get away with, the way I get away with giving compliments and trying not to act like to women, and I try to let them know that I'm not coming on to them. I won't say, hey, you look really good. I won't say that. I'll say, nice outfit, great hair. You know what I mean?
But even that. Now listen. Yeah, if it's a woman with I'm telling you, there's a lot of women who would consider that out of bounds now. Mm-hmm. How dare you comment on my hair or my outfit? That does not define me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
But wait a minute. There's also a time and a place. So the same woman that's saying in an office situation, if as a woman, if I walk into my boss's office, I don't want the first thing he says to me is nice outfit. It means something different depending on where you are.
Agreed.
And Clarence isn't walking into people in a in that kind of a situation and doing that. But in other situations, it's not only appropriate, but it's grumble.
Well, you guys got when I'm out there doing the caricaturing thing, and somebody sits down in front of me,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Sit there, and I will say, great hair.
Sure.
The hair that I'm starting to like now is that I'm like looking at older women is the graying hair that's sort of kind of unkempt. You know what I mean? It's just.
Sure. We both know what you mean.
I call them like the old hippie chicks, with the gray hair and then just walking down, going into Whole Foods or something. That's just attractive to me now. Maybe it's because I'm pushing 60.
Pushing
I'm always
60.
telling women I like great hair. I probably said that within the last 3 months like 5 times. Great hair.
Yeah, well, as a guy who doesn't have any, you must like hair. You don't have any hair.
Doesn't have any. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's like great hair. But I think it's like the coolest thing, huh?
I will say that there are. I'm out here with our mother, and we play bridge, and that more than one of the men that we play bridge with out here has commented to each of us how nice the natural hair looks, because everybody else around there has some color that doesn't occur in nature at that point in their lives, Mm-hmm. And it turns out that a lot of the men are responsible for keeping their wives' roots in order, and all they would like for them to do is let the damn stuff grow out and leave them alone. So they keep pointing out Mother and me and saying, look at how good they look. And it's just, the women don't particularly like it, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, talking about amending the Constitution, whatever that pinkish purple color that women are putting in their hair, the older women put it in their hair, that needs to be put in the Constitution. That needs to go. If pinkish purple women out there, I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
I hear you.
No, it's not. It's constructive.
All right.
It's my humble opinion.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Clarence.
Have a nice day.
Always
You're
good
welcome.
to hear from you.
Bye.
Bye. Roger writes, when we first moved to Pittsburgh in 1994, at the old Civic Arena, the boards in front of the visiting team's bench said Dicks. I wonder if they placed it there in front of the visiting team bench. Said Dicks. Oh, that's funny. Dick's hadn't gone. Dick's Sporting Goods is headquartered here, Susan. So and Roger says Dick's hadn't gone completely national yet, and we had to explain to my family in D.C. that it was an advertisement for a local sporting goods chain. They thought. Oh.
Well, no, but there are, I mean, I said this many times, but the name of one of the main family-owned local grocers
Yes.
in St. Louis
Schmucks.
is Schnuck.
Schnooks. Oh, yeah, Schnooks.
No,
Schmucks.
Schnuck, not Schmuck.
That's right,
Schnucks. Which is but in Yiddish, a Schnuck is some sort of a
So there is
less
another
than
Yiddish word, schnook. It's
accomplished
not.
fellow.
Yeah, right. Schnook.
So
Jeez.
I couldn't believe it when I moved there that a whole grocery store would happily put up their Schnucks. Like you'd have to be.
Think of all the great names that's Yiddish words that start with SCHN or SCH. Schnook. And I mean all these words for people, schnook and schlamazel and
Slub.
Schlub.
Yeah, I mean
What
they're all sort of onomatopoeic.
Well, the
They
minute you
all sound like what the thing looks like.
right, the minute you hear it, you know it's not something you want to be called. All right, well, I think we're out of time. And Susan, you got to go pack because you and Mom are coming back to the Midwest tomorrow, huh?
We are.
Well, it'll be good
So
to
that's what's up next.
good,
Packing.
good to have you closer, and I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend.
Right. I mean, doing this 2 hours later is going to sound a whole lot better, I promise, folks.
Yeah, right. She'll be more awake from now on. So thank you. Safe travels.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Okay, and you guys, I got to go to get my taxes done. I put it off long enough. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? Stay dry. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.